It's the early years of the 22nd century and hell has frozen over. At least that is, if Colorado happens to be your idea of hell. Radiation oozes through mountain valleys a century after a nuclear holocaust. Killer clowns ravage the eastern plains. A cult that worships Ronald Reagan controls the Centennial State's oil supply. It's a strong and distinctive setting for this lengthy and often challenging isometric RPG, and it improves on Wasteland 2 in almost every way. Here you play as a duo from Arizona's Desert Rangers, an Old West meets sci-fi law-keeping outfit whose base was destroyed at the end of Wasteland 2.
It's been a rough road lately.
The Rangers head to Colorado after a leader there offers Arizona vital aid in exchange for help on his own turf. But the mission goes south when almost the entire Ranger company gets wiped out in an ambush. You play as the only two characters who survive. After that, the story can go in substantially different directions. Wasteland 3 does a fantastic job of tying meaningful consequences to almost every choice, and it prepared me for around 60 hours of such decisions mere minutes in. Early on, for instance, if you convince a hostage taker to let a ranger go,
Okay.
she'll run away and warn her friends who will set up an ambush and kill other innocents. Attack her and she'll kill the ranger, meaning you'll have one fewer recruit for your party, but you won't have an ambush ready for you. These often aren't easy choices either, as everyone you meet in Colorado is kind of an asshole.
And on your way home, tell them to hire a better class of spy.
They're written well enough that they left me puzzling over which degree and brand of assholery I could live with.
These refugee vermin aren't going to punch themselves.
And it's remarkably hard to avoid being corrupted by the sketchy business of folding around you.
You'll be back.
I liked that I rarely saw the effects of my choices quickly, and usually not until I was well past whatever pivotal save file I'd made for backtracking. The effects of bad decisions can hit hard, partly thanks to the fact that Wasteland 3 looks significantly better than its predecessor. Fully voiced dialogue lines means it sounds better too, leading to memorably silly moments such as when you meet this guy and you find out he learned his accent from watching a tape of Braveheart.
It's a fun to tape in a burnt out car, so it could be a wee bit warped.
Now that's tame and cheesy by the standard of most of Wasteland 3's rough-edged and often bloody humor, much of which is wrapped in contemporary American political allegory about fascism, refugees, and a brutal police force that sometimes feels a little too on the nose. All of the color commentary comes from NPCs you meet, because your own characters are essentially blank slates. There are preset pairs of folks you can choose that give a false impression that the relationship might have some real impact on the story, but they don't. For the most part, they're as generic as any custom character you make yourself, which you might as well do because that way you can start off with a quirk with big bonuses for one stat at the expense of others. Why 2 Rangers instead of 1? The idea is that you can play Wasteland 3 in online co-op if you wish, although I didn't have a chance to do so as part of my playthrough. It sounds delightfully maddening though, as either player can make decisions without the other one, which could have the nasty side effect of turning 2 factions hostile when you only meant to tick off one.
Clowns! Then the situation was more dire than I had imagined.
Having 2 Rangers around at all time also gives you some leeway for more skills, as Wasteland 3's gameplay hinges on 6-person teams. It's best to keep the team well-rounded as possible instead of specializing everybody along a similar path, particularly since many quests offer alternative methods of resolution, or at least an advantage before combat begins.
I suppose you have a point there.
Having a character with the hard-ass perk, for example, can let you skip otherwise inevitable fights with a few gruff words.
You desert rangers really take the cake.
With the right skills, Wasteland 3 even lets you enlist animals ranging from tomcats to robot chickens, in addition to your main party members, and some other usually uncontrollable NPCs will sometimes join up as well. These extra guys are great to have around because they tend to dish out a lot of damage, but they're also overly fond of rushing into danger because you can't control them. Superficially, Wasteland 3's turn-based combat still looks a lot like XCOM's. A few changes though make it a heck of a lot more satisfying than Wasteland 2. For one thing, enemies and friendlies now take turns as an entire team instead of using an initiative system. This design can be brutally punishing if you didn't get your squad members behind cover before the fight begins, as it allows the entire enemy team to get in a free shot. But You can use your heavy hitters when you absolutely need them most, so it balances out. There's also a greater emphasis on environmental interaction this time around, ranging from simply blowing up explosive barrels to firing the big gun mounted on top of the Ranger's armored vehicle. And I generally found it rewarded careful thinking, such as letting you shut down deadly weapons using computer terminals. My main issues with Wasteland 3 have more to do with the interface. It definitely doesn't have as many bugs as its predecessor, but I'd still sometimes find myself having to restart because the end turn button wouldn't work. At other times, the camera would randomly shoot off far away from my party. For the most part though, these are merely annoyances that did little to detract from my enjoyment. It's a world that invites exploration and rewards it, as many frozen breadcrumbs lead to massive new chunks of an already massive story. It's a pity Wasteland 3 didn't launch in winter, as I can think of few companions I'd rather be snowed in with.
Our analysis reveals that you have a heart, both in the literal and metaphorical sense of the phrase.
Wasteland 3 doesn't add much to the tactical RPG formula, but its impressive freedom of choice, its dark and rough humor, and its satisfying combat make it one of the more memorable entries in the genre to date. Its large world is packed with upwards of 60 hours of content for a single playthrough too, so there's a lot to chew on here. For more on tactical RPGs, check out our reviews of Other Side and XCOM Chimera Squad. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Gamescom 2020 is the heart of gaming, and you can keep to the beat right here on IGN. We've turned the single biggest show in gaming into 5. Gamescom Now is your virtual show floor with up to the second live coverage. Gamescom Daily Show, Gamescom's first ever late night talk show. Our Gamescom Awesome Indies Show, the freshest deep cuts in indie gaming. And finally, the Gamescom Best of Show, including the Gamescom Award. Gamescom 2020 is available on IGN and wherever you stream Gamescom Now.